Good morning, everyone. My name is Maros Mangoba Gado, and I'll be presenting my program proposal, Community-Based Nutrition Program. In our school, I am the school-based feeding coordinator, so I thought, why not extend this program to our community? That's why I came up with the Community-Based Nutrition Program. In my program proposal, we will first tackle the program overview, which consists of introduction, positive deviance define, objectives, cost. In an effort to reduce the occurrence of malnutrition in the barangay and help the youth to obtain their most efficient way of living, we must introduce development programs and enhancement activities. Supplemental feeding program is the most outreach solution one could offer in a community. Basically, it is best preparation for preschool students and public school to encourage healthy living through healthy eating. In addition to this, we must find solutions within the community, optimize it, and make use of it. Positive deviance is the cornerstone of the nutrition program. What is this positive deviance? It is a development approach that is based on the premise that solutions to the community problems already exist in the community. So this is the overall basis of my program proposal. Through this positive deviance, there is a positive approach thus differ from traditional or needs-based or problem-solving approaches in that it does not focus primarily on identification of needs and the external inputs necessary to meet those needs or solve problems. Instead, it seeks to identify and optimize existing resources and solutions within the community to solve community problems. Now, what are the objectives of this program? First, it is to rehabilitate identified malnourished children in the community. Next is to enable their families to sustain the rehabilitation of these children at home on their own. And lastly, it is to prevent malnutrition in future children born in the community. Next is the cost. Food, 25,000 pesos, and for transportation, it will cost 5,000 pesos. Now, these expenses will cover only staff preliminary steps in implementation of the program and will undergo necessary adjustments during the implementation of the program. Next, we will tackle the program components, which composed of A. Main components, B. Implementation framework, and the criteria for site selection. Now, what are the main components of the program? First, we have the identification of successful behaviors among positive deviant families through a positive deviance inquiry. Now, through a positive deviance inquiry, barangay health workers, together with the program staff, will identify the positive deviant families, especially and demonstrably successful current feeding, caring, and health-seeking practices, which enable them to outperform their neighbors whose children are malnourished but who share the same resource base. Next, we have the monthly or every month weighing of all children in the target group through a growth monitoring and promotion activity. And the monthly nutrition education and rehabilitation sessions for identified malnourished children and their caretakers in local kitchens. We have also the community management of the nutrition program through monthly or every other month meeting of the Barangay Health Committee. And the most important is the vital events monitoring. Next, we have the implementation framework. First, the identification of local resources, which will be including the village health community, health volunteers, and the barangay health workers. Next one is a situational analysis of malnutrition in the children. We will conduct a baseline nutrition survey and a focus group discussion. Next is the positive deviance inquiry. which will be the identification of successful feeding, caring, and health-seeking practices. Next one is the design of community-based nutrition program based on the positive deviance inquiry findings and the program components. Next, we have the criteria for site selection. First, we have the prevalence of protein energy malnutrition among young children of at least 30%. Next, we have the availability of affordable local food. So we will carry out an informal market survey, visit local shops and small markets to inventory food availability and price. We will also interview the shopkeeper and find out who buys the food and ask about food availability, whether it is seasonal, year-round, is it constant or sporadic. Next, we will also check the availability of mothers as potential volunteers in the community, because this program relies on the presence of mothers as volunteers to teach or provide peer support to caretakers of malnourished children. Therefore, the presence of women in the community who are willing to give some of their time for the community activities are critical. Next, we have the presence of committed leadership on the community. Next, we have the program implementation, which consists of preliminary steps, the key personnels, and the process of positive deviance inquiry. Now, what are the preliminary steps in the implementation of this program? First, we have to assess community organizational resources with our local partner. Now, we can meet with the barangay leaders and other key community members to discuss the following topics. First, the health situation in the community, especially children under 5 years of age. And next is the creation of barangay health committee if there's no such organization that exists, or an expansion of another existing barangay committee to include new members, particularly to women volunteers. Next, we have the identifying of community health resources with our local partner. Next is helping the community select mothers to become volunteers. And lastly, we're going to select a local nutrition resource panel. Next, we have the key personnels. Now, who are the people who will be involved in the implementation of this program? First, we have the barangay leaders, teachers, members of the formal health sector if there's any, members of the informal health sector, local groups, clubs, associations involving women and non-government organizations. And we have also the individuals that are recognized by the community as opinion leaders or decision makers. Now we're going to tackle about the process of positive deviance inquiry. First, we're going to identify poor families with well-nourished children. Next, we are to compare these positive deviant families with equally poor neighboring families with malnourished children. Next, discover the successful feeding, caring, and health-seeking practices which are likely to enable the positive deviant families to have well-nourished children. Next, we have to identify the harmful practices or lack of good practices among the non-positive deviant family that are likely to contribute to their children's malnutrition. And lastly, we should choose from successful practices those that are accessible to all members of the community and use these practices as the basis for designing a nutrition program. And lastly, we have the measurement of success. Now, how can this be program considered as success? Now, the success of this program will be measured after a year. We will be able to see progress from malnourished children as they gain weight, as well as we will be able to know if the positive deviant families made a good impact in our recipient families. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening and watching until the end of this presentation. Keep safe.